Peace, peace, peace. I am Philip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the October 8th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are tuned in on Facebook Live. It feels good, just like my third day back off the 8-week ban from Facebook. I'm hearing Facebook getting crazy too, man. If you type anything about Trump, if you type anything about the debate last night, they asking you, are you sure you want to post this shit? Right? It's crazy. It's a new day in social media. So listen, I'm taking this day by day because I never know when I'm going to say something that's going to get me another ban. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube live. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm a long way from monetization. Monetization. Yeah, there we go. But it just feels good. You can get notified just like you do with all the other videos when I do go live. And props to those of you who are on tuned in on Instagram. Listen, if you want the better experiences, if you want to see the videos and the pictures that I'm gonna be posting up, go over to the YouTube. It's at Phil Phil MSW. Shout out to the real Miss Miyagi. She got banned from Facebook too, right? So great company. Have no idea who you are, but props to you, man. You know what I mean, for getting banned with me. So listen, we got a dope show on tap for you guys tonight. We're gonna be talking about Tory Lanez getting charged, finally getting charged with felonious assault for him shooting Meg The Stallion, and we're gonna recap the debate from last night. In particular, outside of the memes that came from the debate, which I feel is the only thing of value. I also want to talk about both of their comments on the late Brianna Taylor when they were both posed a question about whether justice was served in that situation. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about this bull, Tory Lanez. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a fan of his, right? He does have some bangers. He has some dope songs that he makes. But I'm not a regular listener of him, and so you won't catch me streaming his music. I do believe that. Do I look at people differently who decide to stream his music? No, right? Because as always, I talk about this line of demarcation that we all have. And so for some people, it's like, yo, he shot Meg The Stallion. He shot a woman. He's a punk. He's a clown. I'm not going to listen to him. For some people with R. Kelly is listen, he's a rapist, he's a woman abuser, emotionally abusing him, probably physically abusing him too. I'm not going to listen to him. Then there's some people who say I'm trying to think of somebody who was fabulous, right? But then they'll turn around and listen to Fabulous, even though we know he's been assaultive towards Emily B, who was again pregnant with his child. Right? Everybody has that line of what they will and will not accept, especially when it comes to artists. Can you separate the artist from the fuck person? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about fuck people who make unhealthy decisions, which negatively impact others. So again, I don't have any thoughts about those individuals who listen to the music. I hope you get out of it what you desire. I spent the day listening to JayZ's American Gangster, and it's not billionaire JayZ, this probably 100 millionaire JayZ. And I'm like, yo, this album is a masterpiece. I'm sitting there in the gym listening to American Gangster, like, man, we talking about the production from Diddy and from No ID. We talking about the lyrics, the bars from Jay, from Beans to Nas to Lil Wayne. But then I sit and think about the content. I think about the content, right? And I know it was like the soundtrack to the movie American Gangster with Denzel Washington. But the rest of Jay-Z albums aren't. that the rap that has penetrated the hearts, minds, and souls of so many black and brown women and men, right? I see so many people saying great album. But when we talk about the content isn't so great. When we talk about the content and the impact that it has on a community, it's not so great. So can we really look at Tory Lanez as such a person, right? As being this abscess to the black community, and not look at Jay for 12 albums prior to 444? Or do we hold them in the same esteem, with the same regard? Right? Who is above rehabilitation? Do we cast Tory Lanez away as black folk? Do we quote unquote cancel him? Or do we believe in his propensity to change? Something that we've given artists, musicians, actors, actresses, giving them the benefit of the doubt time and time and time and time again, even when they've caused harm to the community. So for me, yeah, me personally, I just don't listen to Tory Lanez, but I can't sit and say I wouldn't listen to him if I did like him. Even though I recognize the harm that he's caused. We all try and reconcile it. Tanisha Gibbs says that was a bit of a reach. No apples and oranges in her opinion. Tell me more. This is a dialogue. Again, is shooting somebody in the foot the same as rapping harmful lyrics? No, right? Because one is extremely tangible and negative and is physically causing pain towards another. But if you continue to promote the same ideals over and over and over again, and let's not act like, people talk about this idea of the Godfather and Scarface, right? That's usually the excuse that people go to when they're talking about impact, right? But hip hop is a billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar industry. Look at how we talk. Look at how we walk. Look at how we dress. We're going to say that hip hop doesn't have an influence? Or is it because it's uncomfortable for us to think about that these lyrics are harmful? And they're not the primary reason that people are out here acting a certain way. But are we going to really deny that it plays a part? Are we really going to deny that hip hop didn't play a part in Tory Lanez shooting Meg Thee Stallion? The bravado, the ego. Again, you're supposed to know the difference between right and wrong, right? But did hip hop not build him up to be this individual who's above the law, who's above humanity? Right? Kylie Younger says it's psychological pain, not real. Exactly. Exactly. And so with Tory Lanez being charged with felonious assault, facing up to 22 years and 8 months in prison, I'm a firm believer in accountability. I don't believe in justice, but I believe in accountability. What does accountability in this situation look like? I don't know. I just saw Juelz Santana go to jail for a few years for having a gun at the airport, but that was in New York. I don't know what celebrity means for Tory Lanez in California. I don't know what money does. But again, we'll see, right? We'll see. People look at it and says he had the audacity to claim his innocence. What you want him to do? Sit here and say, yo, I shot her? That doesn't make sense. If you're a public figure and you see somebody is putting out this information, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, and you know the potential consequences, aren't you going to speak up to combat that narrative? Folk get mad at self-preservation. Not I. I could call bullshit when I see it. However, I'm not mad at him for proclaiming his innocence. I'm not the one that potentially has to do 22 years and 8 months in jail. That's that man. So it's easy for me to sit behind the phone and say, yo, you shouldn't have said nothing. Or it's nasty to come out with an album. Bro, I'm not that man. He fighting for his life. If he knew how to make healthy decisions, he wouldn't have been in that situation, right? So we already know that there's some issues there with healthy decision making. And the legal process is going to play itself out. And it's going to be what it's going to be. And that's just what it is. Right? People say, why would Meg Thee Stallion lie? I don't know. They say believe her. Can't go that far. Take it serious, yes. I'm a firm believer in taking everything that anybody says. Take that shit serious. And this isn't a matter of not believing black women, not believing women, not taking people serious. No, it's recognizing that what we call truth and what we feel is truth are two different things. We know she got shot. High likelihood that he shot her. Enough evidence was there for him to be arrested. But I can't just be out here throwing blind support behind people because I don't know. And that's why I always reserve judgment in these situations. Because I don't know what people are out here doing. But I do believe that everybody deserves to be taken serious. Whether it's sexual assault, whether it's emotional abuse, whether it's felonious assault. People deserve to be taken serious. Right? You know, I sit back and think, what does this mean for Meg? What does this mean for Meg? You don't go out and think you're going to get shot by somebody you're dating. I'm assuming they were dating. I think they're dating. Again, I don't know. What does this mean for her wellness, her well-being? What does this mean for future relationships? Her being traumatized like this in a domestically violent situation. People talk, and this is a prime example when we talk about this idea of gun ownership. Everybody's like, I'm going to get a gun for protection. I'm going to get a gun for protection. I'm going to get a gun for protection. When the statistics show that the reason people get guns is never it's a high likelihood that it's going to be used for something else. And that something else is domestic violence. Or you're going to be a victim of your own gun, like Cheddar Bob. Or somebody using it against you. But again, when we talk about hip-hop's responsibility, at some point the culture has to say, listen, enough is enough. whatever this image is, and we're not talking about, again, we know this isn't hip hop and it's in generalities, in general, but this specific sect of hip hop that still promotes certain ideals, the misogyny, the misandry, the hate. It was weird watching Rick Ross chastise Tory Lanez. It was weird. Because I'm like, bro, you're the ultimate misogynist. Right? The amount of dope you've allegedly sold and that you've glorified has ravished communities. And that's why people, they're like, well, Jay, he's turned his life around. He's a billionaire now. He's giving back. He's giving back. But what does that mean to the person he knowingly sold crack to, and he knew that they were an addict? We talk about that's all he had. Options were limited. I hear you. Options can be limited at times, right? But is that person wrong? Is that person's son or daughter or person wrong for saying F JayZ? He sold crack to my aunt, to my uncle, to my person. Me personally, listen, I say no, not at all. Hopefully you don't harbor those negative feelings to where it's impacting you every day. But you don't get to tell people what they need to get over and what they need to work through just because you've atoned in your own way. It don't work like that, right? And so Tory Lanez could drop all the apologies he wants. You made your bed, you gotta lay in it. In this case, it'll be I don't even know the size of a jail cell. Is it 9 by 10? Is it 10 by 12? It might be there. And you'll get an opportunity to be back out here in these streets. And hopefully you make better decisions during that time. And just like that, we're going to keep the party going. So, last night, had the opportunity to watch the debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. On God, I wish I could get that 90 minutes back. It was awful. Nobody had any intentions of answering a question. The moderator was terrible. She could, ma'am, yes, 15 seconds. Thank you, Vice President. Pence was like, let me keep going. Let me keep the party going. People ask me who won the debate. I don't know. I think it was a tie, if it can be a tie. Both of them said nothing of substance. Still have no concrete understanding of what their agendas are. Well, we know what their agendas are. Right? We know what their agendas are. What came out of it was some dope memes. I can't say that. I think the people won. The culture won. We got the Claire and Kamala picture. As you can see if you're on YouTube at Phil MSW. Because the facial expressions were real. Those were the facial expressions that every black person who was raised by a black parent is familiar with. Who the hell you think you're talking to? You don't run this house. Oh, you think I'm playing with you? word. Watch this. I got something for you. Right? Those were the looks that she gave. Then we had your man's who he had that fly on his head. And when that fly landed, I think that was the highlight. Because then it became a countdown as to how long it would take for the fly to leave his head. And it stayed there for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Ironically, it was when he was spitting shit about Brianna Taylor in the justice system and how systemic racism is a figment of folk imagination. But if you don't believe in science, you're not going to believe in statistics. Right? We saw his eye was jacked up. Have no idea what that was. He looked like he was in bad shape. But he was calm. He made me calm to start. And that's what sociopaths do. They have an ability to have their energy transfer. And so I'm sitting on the couch just like him. Minus the little swoop. You know what I'm saying? Minus the swoop. And I'm sitting here listening to him bloviate about nothing. Then she gets an opportunity to bloviate about nothing. And then the question comes up about Brianna Taylor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play his response first because he stayed on brand. He stayed on brand. And that's why I think he wins, right? And even though I said it's a tie, he gets the slight edge because he stayed on brand. He never wavered. Racist going to racist. It's us who look like fools when we get upset when racist. What the boy say, you was who you was before you got here. Sun changed just the top layer, right? We know who he was. But we're going to play his comments.
In the case of Brianna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Brianna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator.
And so his heart goes out to Brianna Taylor because anytime we lose an American, it hurts. Anytime we lose an American, it hurts. That the justice system, it did what it did, right? He stayed on brand. I wasn't shocked by his response. I was more shocked that the question was even asked. Because we know what's going to be said. The reason why it has to be asked for the president, y'all's president, not mine, is because you have no idea what's going to come out his mouth. Which I can appreciate. Right? Proud Boys stand back and stand by. That was some ill shit to hear. Right? You're not going to get those moments from Pence. Why? Because he's the Manchurian candidate. He's the Truman Show. He looked fake. I don't know if anybody has really seen him in person. But again, his response was on brand. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, I was disappointed. And bear with me, this is about 2 minutes or so long because we know they got 2 minutes and they really each went about 4 and some change. Shout out to Kamala for saying ho, reclaiming my time. But listen to her comments.
Death. Senator Harris, in the case of Brianna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Brianna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our country of every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests. And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic, tragic issue of unarmed Black people in America who have been killed.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence.
I see Kyla Younger say BS. Right? Why not just take a side? That was one of the worst answers I've ever heard in my life. Brianna Taylor was her history, her person, her trauma was weaponized during this debate. It served no purpose. Kamala Harris did none of us any favors by saying that she was a beautiful person. She wanted to be an EMT and she wanted to be a nurse. Cool. What about justice? We know she's a beautiful person. What about justice? Are we disappointed? What could have changed? What's in place that was wrong? I saw Judge Mathis have no problem in saying the issues that was wrong with the grand jury. He said abolish the grand jury. And then for Kamala, to transition to George Floyd. Because why? That's easier, right? It's easier to talk about because white folk acknowledged that was a heinous crime. And so we can use more dramatic terms to describe it. Right? 8 minutes and 36 seconds. That got white folk up in arms. But Brianna Taylor, I still can't say too much because we still trying to win Kentucky potentially. We've already alienated the cops. We don't want to alienate them anymore. And so to say that, no, I know her amazing mother, justice wasn't served. People like, Phil, what more could she have said? Nothing. It was a nasty question from the rip. It shouldn't have been a question that was asked. I wouldn't have commented on it. But again, here I am doing Rhetorically Speaking. I'm not running for Vice President of the United States. But as knowledgeable and as aware and as of a critical thinker that she is, or she's shown herself to be, it all went to hell in a handbasket with the answer to that question. Because we got to play the "we are the world" bullshit. I ain't going to talk about that little white girl question. Breckler or Brecklin, whatever her name was. That Pence bodied the answer to. And Kamala found her way stumbling and fumbling and bumbling to the finish line. Black folk was weaponized during this debate. Pence using black folk to bring up her record in California. And you sit back like, ooh, that's nasty. And then they like, oh, Phil, what is nasty? Shit, I don't necessarily know. Is her record nasty or him bringing it up nasty? It's both nasty. Because we recognize the truth. Listen, I recognize she's a black woman who's attempting to run for office. But a part of me for I ain't gonna even say a split second, for a little bit even after that, I sat back and thought, like, given her track record, I don't really know how she feels. And that's the scary part of it all. And so black folk and the idea of us was weaponized at those 2 points during the debate. I saw Janine Cook, who runs Harriet Bookshop, asked why didn't they talk about reparations during this debate? And I was about to say, child, please. That was my first response. Why the hell would they talk about reparations, something that's specific to black folk? And there ain't damn black folk there to even ask the question. Mind you, they in Utah. The only black person I know in Utah is Donovan Mitchell. And Rudy Gobert. But he a black Frenchman. And them people from 90 Day Fiance who not 90 Day Fiance, Love After Lockup, who moved from Utah to Watts. Those are the only black folk I know that live in Utah or have lived in Utah. You think that question will get brought up there? Maybe it was hyperbolic. But that's the interesting part. When you sit and watch this debate, right? And you see how black folk are weaponized and our experiences and our trauma is weaponized. And folks still out here judging people, criticizing people, who's saying, fuck that shit. I'm not participating. It was nothing that I saw in watching that debate that said, Phil, run to the polls. Or Phil, people that look like you and people who look like you aren't in danger, aren't in jeopardy. Nothing I saw would have me think that. Nothing that I've seen historically in government will have me think that my condition will change. They say, Phil, but your condition could get worse. Oh, you think it's not going to get worse anyway? When the average black family has 1/10 of the wealth of a white family? Barack was in for 8 years. Your homie Bill was in for 8 years. And the shit's still widening? Zuckerberg still blocking me on Facebook? It's bigger than Nino Brown, man. It's bigger than Nino Brown. So my thing is, you do you. You can't do us. I forgot who rapped that. I forgot who bars those are. Now, I was going to sit and talk about the Michigan governor who almost got, well, they foiled the kidnap plot. But I don't even feel like it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some Umar.
Donations.
Hashtag quantify.
Donations.
Your pancake.
Donations.
Where is your pancake?
Donations.
Donate to a brother.
Gifts.
If we supporting black folk,
Gifts.
right? That's what I'm gonna do. If
Gifts.
we supporting black folk,
More
hit up the
gifts.
Cash app.
More gifts.
Hashtag Quantify LLC. Marcel says that's his governor. I'm gonna be talking about it on Monday, Marcel. Cause that's some wild shit. White folk out, we know white folk out here wilding. Is anybody surprised that white people are out here trying to kidnap other white people? No. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. But hey, man, it's the game. I'm just playing it the best I know how. I'm gonna give you some more Umar, one more.
Donations.
Hashtag
Donations.
Quantify LLC.
Donations. 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 Gifts.
That Red Lobster.
Gifts.
I ain't been a Red Lobster
Gifts.
in a minute. Them Cheddar Bay biscuits.
More gifts. More gifts.
Gifts. Until Monday, peace.